for this year's draft, specifically the Bengals, three of the glaring needs: offensive tackle, defensive tackle, and for next year especially, wide receiver. Where do you think they should go with this first pick?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I was just asked this. I think for them, first of all, you kind of got to prioritize, like how do you see the greater overall 53-man roster? Like, what are the position rankings? How do you look at it? For me, I say, look, you always build a football team inside out, front to back, right? So you've got to take care of the lines of scrimmage first. So for me, defensive tackle, getting inside pass rush to help out Trey and help out Carl, you got to have those guys. And they don't have anybody. They don't have anybody that gives them that interior push, shortens the corner. You still need pass protection, right? Even though that you have Orlando, and you sign Trent,
right?
It still doesn't mean that those guys are the answer forever.
Right.
And there's some great value right now. I mean, there's a lot of depth at the offensive tackle position. So that could be something that you sit there and go, depending upon who falls to 18, well, maybe we take one of those. Could you use more DBs? Of course. A lot of balls thrown over your head, a lot of explosive plays. I'm sure Lou Anarumo is saying, well, if you give me more pass rush, we'll cut down on some of that.
For sure.
And then, of course, wide receiver, right? It's really deep there. What if one of these guys falls? A guy like Rome Odunze, they're not going to fall. But there's probably going to be a guy like Xavier Legette sitting there from South Carolina, who I think is A.J. Brown light. Would you take an A.J. Brown light on your football team?
For sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting because I always think of it like this. Like if you look at your draft board, like you organize the positions, you look at them horizontally, which one of those positions has a card that's sticking out when your time comes? If there's one that's so obvious, then you probably just take it and let the board make the pick for you. If they're all equal, all graded about the same, that's where you go back to that. How do we rate the positions? What's most important to us? Because otherwise it becomes very emotional, right? And you got to try and remove some of that emotion out of it.
Yeah, we spoke with Director of College Scouting Mike Potts earlier this week, and he spoke about how all those rankings and decisions, they're done. Right now it's just letting the board play out. The Bengals not really known to be first-round manipulators of the board, moving up in the draft, moving down in the draft. There's a lot of talk online right now that maybe they will. Do you see that as a spot the Bengals might try and move up and try and go for a big playmaker?
Sure, because, look, I mean, the great Jimmy Johnson said it in his day when he was picking players for Dallas. It's really an exercise of getting yourself in the position to get one of the players that you like. You go into a draft, I don't know, he would say, with maybe 40, 50 guys, maybe total, that he said, look, I could see as being Dallas Cowboys. Well, there may be just a handful of guys that really the Bengals want on their football team. Well, how do you get in position to get those guys? If one of them is falling right to you, then you don't have to do anything. If you have a feeling that someone's going to try and come up above you to get your guy, then maybe they move. You're right. Since he doesn't do a whole bunch of that, but I think every year that story, kind of like writes itself, and so we'll see what they do.
This Bengals team, these fans, they're passionate. They're ready. Joe Burrow said the window is my whole career, but with Jamar Chase on this one-year extension, probably getting a new one, T. Higgins, who knows how big the window is? What, as a Bengals fans, do you need to see to say this was a successful weekend to set us up for this season?
Well, I think those critical positions that you wind up coming out of this feeling as though they have been addressed to some degree, where you feel a little bit better as you move through the rest of the offseason and into training camp, that they're not going to be a sore spot like they were. Okay, so how can we generate more pass rush? Do we have somebody on the inside? What's going to be the answer in the secondary? Was that just an execution issue, or did they bring in some other guys, fourth, fifth round, that maybe can help push the guys that are already here that are young and still on the up and coming? Did we fortify the offensive line? Look, since Joe has been there, I don't believe they've ever been in the top half of the NFL as far as like pass block win rate. So that's a problem. So that, look, I love Trent Brown. I love Orlando Brown. Played with his father in Cleveland. But people need to step it up because Joe, look, the window may be his whole career, but he's had some things happen to him. You just want to protect him. You want to put him in bubble wrap as much as possible. So I think those positions, did we address pass rush? Are we protecting our quarterback? And do we have an answer for when T probably leaves here? Yeah, you'd like to address all three.